Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Sarah Hughes, and I'm Senior Vice President of Customer Experience and Channel Marketing here at Kandy Communications. Welcome to the webinar today. The topic of this Kandy Fireside chat is on call park pickup and paging, and with me today I have Ted Stutchberry, head of our solution architects and technical project management, as well as our device expert, Jason Whitaker. We also have Sharon Posadny with us joining in as well. So what I'd like to do is just a little housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded and your lines are all muted down. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the chat area and we'll be monitoring those as we go along. And at the end of this, within the next couple of days, you will get a recording in this presentation. So without further ado, let's talk about our topics at hand here. We are going to go into detail around our call pickup, the various types of call pickup, which are group, targeted, and direct, and some tips and tricks with that. And then Ted Stutchberry is going to go through call park, talk about the various types there, and specifically around directed call park, defined park groups, and the difference between that and the system park. He's also going to talk through call park and call pickup on a single button, and we have some great new things that are coming out that you'll be able to leverage. He'll also talk about some tips and tricks and some other interactions with that and some best practices. And then Jason is going to go through different types of paging that we have, also talk about multicast broadcast paging, and again, some other good news that we have with both Yealink and Polycom and some other things. And then he's also going to show you some horns that we are in the process, or he is, interop testing and getting those ready for you. We'll talk about any interactions and that kind of stuff, tips and tricks. We'll also, throughout this whole presentation and webinar, we'll also answer your questions real time. And at the end, we're going to talk about some documentation and some other tools that can help you along. So without further ado, let's start with call pickup. So there are basically three types. Some people call this group pickup, some people call this call pickup, but there are three basic types, and that's typically when you provision a subscriber into a call answering group as a group pickup, and then we use the if there is another telephone that's ringing and a person that's in that pickup group, then they are able to go in and get that call. It has to be a ringing call, though. I've had some recent interactions with people, and it can't pick up an answered call, but it can pick up a ringing call. So there's a star code that we utilize with call pickup, and that's star 31, and that's pretty standard. But if you need to have it changed for any reason because you're coming from a different system, then that can be done on awarding. So let's look at the first type. The first type is group pickup, and it allows somebody to pick up a call that you don't mind which call it is. It's any call, the next call, let's say, and you can pick up the first call that's presented to any member of that group. So if there's 10 people in the group and this call comes in, you're going to pick up that next ringing call. And this works best if it's only in one pickup group. And all you have to do, you're provisioned in the same pickup group, and a ringing call is happening. You dial star 31 and press send or dial or go off hook, and then it will pick up that next ringing call. The next type is targeted, and targeted is when you're really looking for a specific user. For instance, Jason, if he and I are in the same pickup group and he says, Sarah, hey, I've got to step out, I've got to run an errand, can you pick up my calls that might come in? And so what I can do is I'm only going to answer Jason's calls. And so I would then dial star 31 plus either his full telephone number. I can also dial his alias number, his extension number, and then I can pick up a specific call that's ringing for him. This is really good, again, when you're trying to pick up a specific person's calls, and so that's why we call it targeted. And then finally is directed. And this is best when you have a person who might be in two different pickup groups. So maybe I'm in customer service or customer success, and Jason is in technical support, but maybe I also answer calls and pick up calls for technical support. And so I'm in two groups, and maybe I've been told that, hey, technical support is super important. You need to answer it over any time that you might have a customer success call at the same time ringing in. And so by using the directed call pickup, I'm able to dial *31, and then I choose one of the two groups. And those groups are given a group ID, and that group ID is something that is assigned as it's being provisioned. So this is best used whenever you are in multiple groups. You can be in multiple groups. And so again, choosing one call for a certain group over another. All right, so another interaction here, you can't be in a UCD group or single line appearance group and a call pickup group at the same time. So you kind of need to choose if that person is going to be in a hunt group, that's fine, but they can't be in a UCD group and um, um, a pickup group at the same time. So that's a little different there. Okay, so how does this get provisioned? You go under fulfillment in our admin, and then you go under call answering groups. You definitely want to have your subscribers created before you get here because you're going to select them in the bottom portion of this window in the group members. And so you'll use the pick list here and you'll choose call pickup, and that's for all three types, okay? And then you can change, you can give it a name. That name is important because you're going to see that come across the display. And if you just, in the number field, if you've gone in and created some numbers, I would never give this a DID or a direct number, DDI in some countries. I would give it one that is a, you can assign a non-DID to it, but you have to go provision that into PST and DIDs. Or if you leave it empty, it's going to give you some wild long number. And again, if you're wanting to use it to target and pick things up, you may want to use that. So it's up to you. You can let it create one for you. The alias status, that is going to look, you do want to say enabled on this. And here's why, because if you want to pick up one group or the other group, the alias, it's going to assign one for you. And then at the bottom of this area, you can choose different people. You can check any users that aren't already checked. You can also go over here in the end user web portal under configure. You can click on that and it'll give you some of these capabilities where you can go in and check it. You can also set some things for this call pickup group on the advanced side, like max group size, max queue size. Max queue size is how many calls are you going to allow to queue up in this pickup group. And so once you do that, let me see if I can go over here, then once it's provisioned, it's going to give you, if I didn't put a number at all, it'll give you this long number. Nobody wants to remember that. But when I said alias status enabled, that's where it's going to assign an alias number. And this is not a random number. This is sequentially the next call pickup group or answering group that you've created in this customer group. So in my example here, it was number 12. All right, and so we had planned on doing a demonstration, but I'll just kind of break it down that as an incoming call comes in here, if the calls are ringing into this particular pickup or DID, if I wanted to just pick up any one of them, if they're calling Joe Snowman here, which is a cool name, and Sharon wanted to pick it up, Sharon could have some speed dials on her phone created, like a *31, that would pick up any ringing call in that group. And you can name it whatever you want. But if you wanted to pick up as a targeted or directed call pickup, you could put a speed dial on *31 plus. You could put in the speed dial their alias or their full 343-883-2775. And then it would be a directed call pickup. So it would only pick up Joe Snowman's calls, not Jason's calls in this case. And then if I wanted to go in and if I was in customer service, and then I also had a pickup group for technical support in that example, if technical support was group 2, I could say star 31 2. The number 2, because that was the alias group ID for that. And then I could pick that particular one up. And actually that is directed call pickup. The targeted picking up Joe Snowman's call over Jason's, that's what they call targeted. And again, I know that's confusing a bit. I apologize for misstating that, but the targeted means I'm targeting an individual coworker to pick their call up, whereas directed means there's multiple pickup groups. Which do I want to pick up? Okay. And then again, you can program speed dials through our button assignment. So in this case, you would click speed dial and you can go in and whatever you want to call it and choose custom. And that's where you can put in, you know, star 31 plus the extension number or the full telephone number of the party that you want to pick up. And in this case, you'd probably change the key label to, you know, Joe directed call pickup. If I'm always answering his calls over and over again because we back each other up. And if I wanted to pick up directed call pickup customer success or customer service over technical support, then I could put in DCPU as a directed call pickup acronym and put in support or something like that. So I know that that button is always going to be a directed call pickup. When you hit accept and you hit save, you will want to check sync so that that phone does go in and restart and take advantage of that. Now, if your phone doesn't have the ability to do buttons like this, then there's definitely the device parameters that can be provisioned. And those, again, are basically speed dials. They're 101 for most all the handsets if we don't have button configuration for them. And again, the star 31 being the generic, picking up any call, star 31 plus a telephone number would pick up a specific person. Now, they have to be in the same group. And then the star 31 plus whatever alias that was set up for that pickup group is to allow you to pick up one versus the other. All right, and so here it shows star 31 plus the alias in that. And then here's one again, star 31 plus the full telephone number. Again, you can do this with device parameters, or you can do this with the button mapping. Okay, so a couple of tips and tricks here is that it's best to use just the plain Jane star 31 pickup group if you're only in one pickup group, because you know, if you're in two, how are you going to know which one you're picking up? And then one thing that we like to say here too is when you modify someone in provisioning and they're on a collab session and you modify them as a user, you are going to drop them. And so make sure that, you know, if they're, check with them, IM them, are they on a collab when you make a change? And again, don't forget that that pickup group alias is something that you don't get to assign. The system will assign that. It could be a single digit. It could be multiple digits, depending upon how many pickup groups have been created in the administration. And again, those interactions there, call pickup does not work if they're part of a shared line appearance, and it won't let you be a part of a UCD group and a pickup group as well. So those are a few tips and tricks for that. I'm now going to hand it over to Ted Stutchberry and let him go through with Call Park. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So what we want to go through here is the Call Park functionality and kind of how this functionality can be leveraged to mimic some old school systems and provide some key functionality that's just there was a reason that the functionality existed in kind of old key systems is because it's very useful in terms of managing calls in varying environments. So we've got two types of call parks that we're really going to dive into. It's Call Park directed or a parking lot. We're not really going to talk too much about the general system parking lots because that doesn't have a lot of use currently. Now, the call park directed is really about parking to a telephone number, so a very specific person. So if you have an interaction with one person all the time, yeah, you can use that *26 and the full TN number to park to a person, right? The other is using a defined parking lot, and we'll walk through how to define a parking lot that allows you to park to a parking lot and could have a number of others leveraging that parking lot as well to be retrieving from that parking lot. Okay, so next slide. So defining a call parking lot, you go under the call answer groups and you can define any number of parking lots that you need. These are really good in retail environments. These are really good in travel, insurance, like any kind of environment where you are bouncing calls around to different phones and need them to be picked up in different locations. These parking lots are great. So really what you do is you define yourself a parking lot and you give it a number. And that's what you'll be using to basically park the call against. That number does not have to be, and we don't recommend it to be an actual TN. There's no reason for it to be a TN. You don't need it from the PSTN. And there's no reason to pay for a number to have it for a parking lot. Okay, next slide. So one of the things is when you do park a call, it's really important that there's an ability for that call to actually come back to the user, because as we all go about our business, you'll park a call and it will sit there, and if you totally forget that it got parked and it doesn't get picked up by anybody else, you want to make sure you're servicing that customer on the other end. So what we have are what's called the auto retrieve timer. By default, it's set for 2 minutes, right? 120 seconds. So a call will sit in a parking lot for 120 seconds. If it is not retrieved within that time, it will actually be presented back to the person that parked the call. That is a setting that you can set up in your end user portal, and it can be set up on an individual basis. But by default, again, it's 2 minutes. You can set it anywhere from 30 seconds to 350 seconds, so five, almost 6 minutes. Next slide, please. So the other thing too is that a call that's parked will use or can use music on hold, and so if you have music on hold set for your site, it will be what's used for your parked calls. So whether you have any advertisement or just standard hold media that's being used, that media can be defined for the site or for the entire organization. That will actually be used when a customer is parked to the system. And of course, you have the ability to manage your media within the KBS portal, and so you can go and manage what music on hold you want to be heard for those sites. All right, next slide. So the park is always it's similar to the call pickup. The call park is activated by vertical service codes. So when you're doing a directed call park, it's a *26 to park it and a *32 to retrieve it. These are good things to know if you don't have SIP phones that you can program. Not a lot of people use it, but you could write it down to say, hey, if I've got an analog phone and I want to just park a call at a particular parking lot, and you just write it down on a piece of paper, and a way you tape it up beside the phone. Here's what you would do to park that call. You can have it written down. So that it's available, but again, most of the time these will be behind the scenes and will be used as part of the provisioning of an individual SIP phone. and we'll walk through a bit of the device parameters for the setup for the parking. Okay, so next slide. So as I mentioned, the device parameters for a Yealink phone here are shown. So really, it's most of these phones have kind of defined an integration with parking parameters. So we've gone and validated kind of the call parks and pickups with all the a lot of the phones that we work with. There are a number of them that use a single button park and retrieve. I'm going to get into this a little bit more as we go forward. This is where you're getting to the point of almost mimicking a key system, line 1, line 2, line 3 scenario, where a call comes in. Now, they're not actually lines, right, in this scenario. They're actually parking lots. So it's even better because you can have any number of calls come in to your user, but then you can start stacking them up on parking lots for other people to be retrieving. So here what we've got here is the parameters for a Yealink. So as mentioned, right, you can see it's got the star 26, it's got the star 32 for the call park codes, and then it's got the value that down in yellow, that value is really, that's the parking lot number that had been assigned for this particular parking lot. And so here we've defined it as lot 1, you got the value of a parking lot. And so now when anybody clicks on that part, when you've got an active call and somebody clicks on lot 1, it will park that call on lot 1. And any other person who has this same set of parameters on their phone, they would be able to pick up that call, right, from their phone without having to do any transfers or do anything funky, right? So you could, if you need to, you can park the call. You can then hit your paging system, say, hey, there's a, can you pick up the call on lot 1 or line 1? You can call it whatever you want, and then have the other phone or the person at the other phone pick it up. Again, very similar to the old systems, without the without the limitation of having only like 3 lines, right? In the old systems, if I had 3 lines, you only had the ability to kind of hold the call on those 3 lines. Here, you can have any number of calls because it's SIP. You could have any number of calls come in and stack up calls on the different lots, and then still be taking calls and not be blocked from actually taking calls. All right, next slide. So as I mentioned, the single button park and retrieve, right, it takes up a lot less real estate on the phone, right? In the past, you had to have a button for park and a button for retrieve. Right here, you've got one button that does kind of both functions. So you've got the call coming in. First, and it's coming into the phone. Then you can say, hey, I'm going to put that call on lot 2, right? So you press one of the parking lot buttons, and then that parking lot lights up. There's a visual indication to say, hey, there is actually a call stacked up here on lot 2. And any of the phones that have the parking lot feature set up with lot 2 will all show that, hey, there's a call stacked up on lot 2, right? And if they know to get it, all they have to do is press the button, and away they go. They got that call picked up, right? And it's transferred over.
One thing with that too, Ted, that I've seen in the field is if you put the label on this, it says lot 1, lot 2, lot 3, but if you put the word park, and then you put a number or something like that, if you just put a telephone number or a parking lot number, people tend to think that it's actually a line appearance that they can press it and go off hook and make a call. But if you put either lot or park and then a number or something like that, then they'll know immediately that that's not what it's used for, especially whenever multiple people use that desk or anything.
Oh, that's a good point, right? I mean, you're not going to press one of those things and then have dial tone, right? I mean, it's these are meant for parking only, and you don't need that from a phone perspective because again, it's not a key system where you're limited to the number of lines out or the number of lines in, right, in the SIP system, and that's why it's kind of it's slightly different, but it's a heck of a lot better because again, you're losing those those limitations that used to be on the system. Okay, next slide.
Yeah.
All right, so the capability to have the Park Retrieve functionality is also built into our device keys capability. So when you go into the KBS portal and you configure a phone and go into the device keys, you actually have the ability to set up your set up a key for retrieving the parking or parking. So here, this kind of shows on a Poly the old mechanism for doing this, and this is where you're using a button for a park and a button for a retrieval, and so you have this ability, but this actually takes up a little bit additional real estate. If you go to the next slide, we've actually coming up in 52. Well, oh, sorry, nope. This sorry. Okay, it's coming up. It's coming up soon. These are showing kind of all the call park directed, kind of all the same thing in that directed call park. If you go to the next one, what I want to show is, no, next one. Oh, where? It's missing my slide. Back one, back one, back one. Okay, my slide is actually not here. I put it on here. What we have, so similar to, go one more back to the device keys. Okay, so similar to what you see here, there's actually going to be a single button park retrieve. So within the device keys functionality, there is a single button call park retrieve that you will have available to you. It's coming in 52.1, and it will do for both Poly and Yealink the parameters that you need for the parking lot to have that single button park retrieve, right? So oh, sorry, 51.2, not 52.1. Thank you, Jason. It's coming in 51.2. So the next release that's coming out, you'll actually have those available to you. And that's,
we can add that slide. We can add that slide in the presentation stack that we send out to everybody then. Yep.
Yeah, let's make sure we do that. So it's like I say, it's a really important feature because, to be honest, it's the single button park retrieve is definitely a feature that is really prominent, like I say, in a lot of retail, in a lot of smaller businesses where you are bouncing those calls around to multiple people. And so it's important to have that that set up and really minimize that real estate in those areas. So that's just a new thing that's coming that will be important. Okay.
So you can technically, what you're saying, right, Ted, is that you can choose a smaller, cost-effective phone that has less buttons now that you're using a button that does both park and pickup of the park calls.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So similar to what we showed, similar to the screens that we were showing. All right, so from a tips and tricks perspective, I mean, really, single button park and retrieve is the best approach. Using parking lots and using that single button park and retrieve is the best approach for using call park, right? It's the simplest and it is the most flexible, providing you with that capability that really does mimic a lot of that line type key line system features. Definitely using a non-DID for parking lots is really important. Again, from a cost perspective, so you're not paying for a DID, and just from a security perspective, so nobody's coming in from outside sources and just hitting that parking lot. Not that you could pull something from that, but it was still, it's still just ideal not to use those TNs, just not to eat them up. And so have fun using those and playing with them. So on to Jason.
Great, Jason.
Yeah, and I would just add real quickly to Ted's that Audio Codes also supports the single button, but we don't have it integrated into device keys currently. So, oh, let me share my webcam back, sorry. So
that's a good point.
It's available via device parameters. Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Jason. We've got a really large hospital chain that uses audio codes for their for their nurses stations and stuff, and that's a perfect example of somewhere where calls are bounced around a lot, and they use audio codes specifically and use this single button park and retrieve to saves that real estate on the phone and gives them all those capabilities to share calls around. Yeah, good point, Jason. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I always see park and retrieve as one of the important SIP features because especially in smaller deployments or models where they used to have a line appearance on every phone and they would put it on hold and someone would pick it up because SIP doesn't function that way. So this is a way to do it. All right, paging types and what we want to know about them. Oh, I forgot this one was animated. So one of the first ones I want to talk about is one of our application features, which is point-to-point intercom. It uses a specific star code and then a destination telephone number. And this allows you to page a specific phone. It's used in, boss assistant, boss secretary types environments, or wherever you might want to initiate a page and have a direct phone go off hook or auto answer, and you can speak to them. It is a one-to-one paging. Okay. Traditional paging, this you guys may be a lot used to or familiar with this one, where someone pages, it goes out over loudspeakers or whatever within an environment. We can connect to those various ways within SIP. Some people use gateways and convert to an FXS, FXO environment, or you can use paging adapters, SIP paging adapters, which would be my recommendation, and convert that straight into an audio input that can go into your paging system. And then the third type, that's pure SIP, is multicast or broadcast paging. And this allows you to build out a paging group. You put all members of the phones that you want to be in this same group, and it uses multicast you press a button, you send out a page, and it initiates a flow to all the phones. They must be on the same network or in the same broadcast domain, but other than that, it works very well. Okay.
Hey, there is there are a couple of questions that came in. One is about the parking, I believe. It was a question, does this work with the Yealink U series phone? I don't know, Ted or Jason, the single button park and pickup, does that work with the U series phones from Yealink?
Yes, except that I believe currently we are still adding device key support for the U series. So once that's there, yes, it will. It does work right now, of course, with device parameters.
Right, so you could hard code that in. Okay.
Yeah.
And then there was a question on the paging. Will it work with an alias or does it have to be the full DID? And I think that was probably the point-to-point as well as
I believe it works with both, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it does
alias,
too. Yep.
Yeah, alias and or the actual DID of that phone or subscriber.
And on paging, okay. And on paging, do you have to have the same brand of phone to work with multicast paging or paging?
So to configure it, and we'll show that here in a few more slides, to configure it within our paging group in the portal, yes, it's either a Polycom group or a Yealink group. But broadcast paging does work as long as they're within they're selecting the same channel or broadcast. We have some examples of that, and that can be done via device parameters.
Great.
If you wanted to page amongst Yealink and or Polycom. And of course, any other audio codes or Cisco that support it currently can be done via device parameters. Okay, so this is how it's configured in the portal. If you're a Polycom or a Yealink phone currently, you can set up the paging group, or the multicast, I should say, paging group within our admin portal. You go in and you give it a name, you select a multicast IP address to use. You can set a volume offset as well. The vendor here is where you drop down and you pick either Polycom or Yealink currently, and then it gives you a list of the subscribers via MAC and model number and the subscriber that you can choose to put in the group. And then there are 3 default groups already built out. Let's see, go ahead.
There was another question on park, just a second there. When a call gets parked, is there a time limit to be parked? I believe that's the recall timer that's set in the end user portal for each subscriber. Is that correct, Jason?
That's correct.
Yep.
Okay. And then the question was on the single button park and retrieve. When will that be available? It's already available on the Yealink.
Well, single button park and retrieve is available for audio codes, Yealink, and Poly today with device parameters, right? And what we were showing was, or what we're trying to show, it wasn't in the slides there, but it'll be in the slides when we hand them out, is that in 51.2, you'll also be able to use device keys for Yealink and Poly.
It'll just be a drop down, just like the other feature options are. You just drop it down to single button. You need to populate a name, a label, and a parking lot ID.
Okay. Do we have the, so the recall timer for park, someone asked about that. The recall, do we have the ability to change the recall timer? Yes, that's on a user by user basis that can be changed in the user portal.
It's between 30 and 350 seconds. Default 120 seconds.
That's right. Okay. All right. So,
here, let me finish with this one. You can configure, there's up to 23 paging groups for Polycom. This varies by vendor type. Excuse me. And so this is one thing you have to be cognizant of if you're going to mix Poly and Yealink or some others, is to make sure the channel list matches up. And I think we have a slide that mentions that with Poly and Yealink specifically later on. Go ahead, next one. This is what it looks like if you were adding the device parameters to configure it for a Polycom. And I won't go through all of these, but we have examples for this if you wanted to do it via device parameters and not within the admin portal. This is the Yealink as well. As you see, it allows up to 31 channels. So yeah, and there's the note. If you want to mix with Poly, you want to stay between channels 1 and 25, and that would be the same with any vendor's phones if you were going to mix. Okay, go ahead if there's no questions. And just jump in, Sarah, like you have been when there's questions, because I'm not seeing them pop up. For maybe I didn't do something right.
Is there, it might be my fault there too. Is there a limit on the number of users for broadcast paging?
I do not think so. And within the group
so
itself, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it would be the size of the network, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is an example here of what it looks like from a Polycom doing the paging.
Jason, I'm sorry. I just make sure that you're not muted there. I changed you to be able to see those. Can
on the
you
phone, select the group if you have multiple groups built out that you wanted, and then press page. When you're done, oh, what, Sarah? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I moved you to the next level to be able to see the questions.
All
My
right.
apologies, it messed your audio up. Apologies. Yeah. If you can repeat that last bit, sorry.
Oh, no. Okay, wherever I got to. This is an example of what the paging looks like from a Polycom phone. Um, press the paging button, select the group that you're going to if you're in multiple groups, press the page key and start to speak. It's going to auto answer on the far end and they will hear you. Then press page or end page or hang up when you're done.
Great. And you can edit some of these, right? Like what it says, like paging or page along the
Yeah,
bottom
yeah,
and some of that. Yeah, so that if you do mix them, that you can share, they look the same instruction-wise.
yeah, because we'll show Yealink next in the slide.
Yeah,
Oh,
this
there
was
was
a
a
build
pop-up.
slide, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. Nothing special there.
One of the questions came up of, does the paging button show up once you have a page added? The paging button, the initial, this is when you're receiving one, but this paging button here at the bottom left, it's based upon the provisioning for that phone, right? For the MAC address with the device
Yep, being
parameters.
added to a
Right.
paging group. Yep.
Right, or a phone in the pick list in admin for that. Okay. And for Yealink.
Okay, and pretty similar paging again. I think you can change the label on that to whatever you want it to be. Press the button, speak into the phone, hang up when done. And here's the note we put in, or Sarah put in, about paging is supported via Cisco with Cisco and audio codes using device parameters currently. We will see that added into device keys as well as we move forward. I'm pretty sure audio codes will be the first one early part of next year if I had to bet, but don't hold me to any time frames yet.
Great.
All right. And then paging devices can basically interface with any kind of paging system via one methodology or another. There's common vendor names out there you guys are probably familiar with: Algo, Valcom, Bogan, Viking, etc. There's probably plenty I've missed. My easy recommendation, especially if you have an older paging system where you've got an amplifier and speakers, is to go with some type of paging adapter. We're working, and I think we're going to talk about it more next slide, with Algo Solutions. Right now, they have a very large product line that covers really soup to nuts, I would think, of the paging environment and what's necessary. But a paging adapter basically gives you, it acts like a SIP device to Kandy, and then it'll give you the standard audio outputs that can plug straight into an amplifier or paging system. So that they're very simple to use. A lot of times when you try to use gateways, you run into, do I need FXS? Do I need FXO? How exactly is that configured? And Ted will tell you it can be a little frustrating sometimes to get it worked out. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, so they can be added as a generic device within the system for configuration. You can use our gateway configuration doc to get the configuration for the particular paging device if it's been in there, or gateway, and then our device generic device configuration guide as to how to build it out within the system, and that could get you the automatic configuration for the subscriber that's got the SIP subscriber that's going to be associated. Okay. Sorry, I'm still not seeing the questions exactly right, Sarah, so just let me know.
Yeah, don't worry, I've got those for you. Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I mentioned Algo Solutions just a minute ago, and we're working with them. You should see it come out in our next release documentation on this. But they have a large product line, IP intercoms, which are like door phones, sometimes they're called. They have video or standard, just audio only. Whoops, we okay?
Sorry.
Speakers that you can, these act like SIP endpoints. You configure basically a subscriber in them, dial that subscriber, and it pages out visual alerters if you're in a high noise environment and you can't hear, you need a visual alert that something's going on to pay attention to. Those act like SIP endpoints as well, and the paging adapters I mentioned before. If you need to interface to an older analog type paging system. And these will be supported and documented in our upcoming 51.2 release. Okay. Tips and tricks and best practices. Of course, multicast must be in the same network, doesn't route. Same channels. We kind of talked about most of this stuff. Non-DID numbers for security, just like with the call parking. Careful of network devices that may block multicast traffic and matching up codecs. And multicast ranges if needed. And that's really it for paging. Sarah, is there any questions coming up we can go over?
Yeah. So there's still a couple of questions on where the where you see the recall timer, and I believe it is within the end user web portal. You go into settings.
Yeah, there's actually a screenshot of that. Let me find which slide it was. There it is. It was slide 12 in the paging. I don't know which one that relates to exactly.
Let's see here, 12. Let's see.
Yeah, it's auto retrieve timer.
Yes, it is right here. Yes, and so this is in the end user web portal, and you go to settings, one of the 4 tabs across the top, and then on the right hand side, it automatically is voice settings, and you'd have to click one of the others to choose, voicemail or conferencing or whatever. But in the voice settings, you'll see the auto retrieve timer there, and that's what's used for the park retrieve. When this person parks a call, that's the amount of time that it would stay retrieved, or it would stay parked until they, if they had not taken it off the park, then it would bring back to them. Okay, let's see if there are any other questions here. I think that is it. Just double check here. Okay, all right, so let me just jump back to the end here. Sorry, making you dizzy. Yes, so a couple of documentation and tools that can help. One, if you haven't already registered for our Kandy Partner Portal, that is where our documentation is, that is where our training is and support within that. And so here are some, if you go to Partner Portal, https://partnerportal.kandy.io and /knowledge base or /knowledge, then you can find our documentation there. There's several things that we've reviewed today and given you hands-on, but some of that is within our feature description guide, specifically around park and pickup. And then within the administration provisioning portal for customers, there are several things under call routing, call answer groups. We talked about the pickup groups, creating those, creating park groups, services and paging groups as well. And then under devices that we were showing with the device parameters as well as the buttons and generic devices. Don't forget that each one of the certified devices vendors like Polycom and Yealink and Audio Codes and Cisco. Each of them, we have a separate guide for them, and specifically the Yealink configuration guide does show the device parameters for multicast paging, and the Polyphone configuration guide has some of the park and functionality in it. The Audio Codes configuration guide has a single button call park and retrieve information in it. And then other than documentation, we also have some end user training. There's some Poly feature videos there, as well as some Yealink feature videos that you can go look at, and we'll create some more and put out there as well. And then under support, we've added some things, the knowledge base there, some articles around the Yealink phones and the Poly phones, but we're going to also add some on Cisco and Audio Codes, some of the different device parameters that many people have asked for. And so inside the Yealink and the Poly knowledge base articles around the device parameters, we have the setup for multicast paging, which you can do that through admin, as well as a single button call park and retrieve, and the Poly multicast paging there too, but you can also do it in admin. So we'll add some of these other functionalities that we went through today. And then finally, we do have a generic landing page for our end user training that you can link to as you send out information to your customers as you're onboarding them. And this link does have some of these videos there as well. And we did do a webinar last year in 2020 on group features, which did have some other functionality in it, but that is another tool that you can use as a refresher in that. And don't forget, you can email us at customersuccess@kandy.io, and my team is happy to help answer any questions that you might have as they come up. So please feel free to send those questions to us. You could open a case, but it's actually probably faster to utilize customer success at kandy.io for questions about things, whereas using our support cases for things that need troubleshooting assistance and something might be broken or needs resolved. So with that, I want to end the webinar here unless there are any other questions that come up. We appreciate your time today. We appreciate the spending your morning, afternoon, or evening with us. And do, if this is something that you feel like would be very beneficial to other people within your company, then absolutely please recommend that they watch the replay on this. You share that with them. And we do keep this as a recording so that you can use this as a refresher ongoing. So again, thank you for your business, thank you for your time, and thank you for joining this webinar.
Thank you, sir.